I didn't want to see direct human slavery, but I thought undesirables needed to go in order to improve society. And that's eugenics. That's saying we, as a more enlightened group of people, get to decide who lives and who dies. That's what eugenics is. So I was a eugenicist. The idea that it's a tough decision, but somebody's got to make it. And these eugenicists are who own and control the governments of the world, own and control the police departments, own and control the military, own and control the banking system, own and control the education systems, so-called education systems. You know, you look at their ties to other orders like the Fabian Society, incremental socialism, bringing the idea of the Marxist revolution through the long march through the cultural institutions, put forward by the Frankfurt School as well. Gramsci's plan, study it, read about him. They recognize the idea of the workers' rebellion, you know, workers of the world unite, wasn't going to bring in communism into the world. It had been tried and it didn't work the way they had originally envisioned it. So they said, well, we need to take over political institutions, we need to take over educational institutions, we need to take over the media, we need to take over, you know, Hollywood and movie making, we need to take over, you know, military and police forces, everything. We need to especially get our point people into educational institutions like universities. Now go on the Fabian Society's website. They have a whole section for women to propagate the neo-feminist nonsense. You know, there's no link for men to do it, you know, because they're trying to sell this to women. They're out in the open about it, folks. It's so blatant they're out in the open with it. Because they know that the way to destroy a society is to get the minds of women. You get their mind first, the men and children follow. Hitler understood this perfectly. He said it out in the open. Women don't even understand the power that they have to influence the minds of the next generations. And there is all the example that you really need to understand. How is the world right now? Well, it's a very good chance that largely through who they decided to breed with and the value system they decided to teach to bring to their children instead of a true nurturing value system that is based on the non-aggression principle, it's an inescapable conclusion that women have largely made the world the way that it is. You know, like it said in the movie Fight Club, we're a generation of men raised by women. Almost all single parents in the world are women. I'd say 98 to 99% of them are. Very, very few single fathers raising children, except in the examples where women pass earlier than the man. These think tanks' influence cannot be overstated, and most people know nothing about any of them. How many people have studied the Club of Rome, or the Fabian Society, or the Tavistock Institute of Human Relations, or social engineering in general, or behaviorism in general? A paltry handful, because they don't understand mind control, and they don't understand how mind control is directed by dark occultism. It's ancient, dark, occultic psychology. And most people just want their comfort level, and they want to say, I don't want to know about that, I want to look the other way. Because they're stuck in a satanic mindset, folks. That's where this ultimately comes from. It grows directly out of Satanism. The satanic me mindset. The mentality of, what am I going to do for me today? All day, every day. I'm not going to look at any wider dynamics going on in the world. I don't care about any of that. Me, all day, every day. Often asked the question, where are the numbers of women coming forward and speaking out against the immoral system? There are several. But if you look at the totality when it comes to how many people are really truth movement activists and teachers, and how many women are involved in the truth movement in general, it is probably a minimum of a 10-to-1 ratio. Maybe even bigger. Maybe 20-to-1. It's between 10 and 20-to-1. Easily. Maybe larger than that. I don't know. And I mean, what does that say about the value system that most women are embracing? The vast majority. I don't want to make a blanket statement there. It shows you how deep the mind control and fear propaganda goes when it comes to the entire feminine portion of our society. Clearly, they are being targeted to love the state, to insist upon the state's protection, to think that the state is necessary. And this all comes about as a result of getting the children away from the family. This is what even classical feminism did very effectively. They didn't want women in the workforce decades ago to put them on equal playing ground with men. They wanted that so that there would be no one at home in a family dynamic, so that the family would be forced to turn the children over to state-run education. And there would be no nurturing influence in the home to teach values to the child. The state would teach its values to the child. In doing that, you're also going to diminish work value by doubling workforce. You know, that was another thing. So, you know, they could pay people less. And you're creating more competition within society, further pitting men and women against each other. And you're creating a lot more corporate consumers at the same time. It had the effect, it worked on multiple fronts for the corporate masters. And that's all they're about doing. They're about creating the inauthentic man and the inauthentic woman, whose value system is the dollar. And that's all they think about all day long, from the minute they get up till they go to sleep. I'm talking about men and women here now. But I mean, you just think about, look, folks, just do this as a social experiment. Here's my challenge and my homework for the week. Go and try to talk to any young woman, like a teenage girl, and just even try to see what type of a mindset that they are in, how they have been culturally conditioned, the type of pop culture that they are involved in, exposed to, their entire mindset of how they talk to each other, what they talk about. Just try to put yourself around that for a day if you can, and just absorb the mentality. Because most people won't do that or don't have access to do that. But you do it and you tell me you're not horrifically appalled, I'll call you a liar right to your face. I challenge people to just try to do it, and you'll see what families, so-called families, are pumping out there. Because they're just as asleep. The parents of these people, if you want to call them that, are just as asleep. I want to know why people think there aren't more women in the truth-telling world. You know, I mean, I tried to make a list one day of, you know, women who are really on the right track when it comes to understanding things holistically. It's a handful. Many of them are afraid to speak, too. They're afraid to come out and speak because something put in their notion that people aren't going to be willing to listen to them because they're women. I mean, that's nonsense. It's a ridiculous notion. Anybody with a mindset to understand, partially understand what's going on in this world, would be welcome to hear more women speak up on this, on these issues. Not only that, but get in the face of men who are ignoring these issues or who are supporting this garbage, immoral system of slavery. That's the whole problem, is that women aren't up in the men's faces in their lives and saying, don't partake in this evil. I don't care what it would cost you in the way of a paycheck. I don't care about whether there's going to be food on the table if you're doing something that's immoral. And it's the whole concept of a mob wife, that stands by her man and doesn't ask questions. Don't ask questions about the heads that I bust every day, honey. It brings food. It brings a paycheck home so we can put food on the table and clothe our children. Yeah, Rudolf Hess said the same thing, running the Auschwitz camp. He was a wonderful moral man who loved his family, don't you know? These people are all garbage who think like that. Garbage. You're garbage if you're doing those immoral actions, and you're garbage if you're supporting those immoral actions. And get as offended about that statement as you like. It'll never make it untrue. The problem is they got the children out of the parents' guidance. They taught the parents only to value the monetary system, and that was the total annihilation of moral values. Destroying familial dynamics. Destroying proper parenting. So-called parents who are actually just garbage, immoral human beings, raising so-called, quote-unquote, raising, they didn't raise anything, raising children with absolutely no moral values, teaching them money's the only value. Folks, we have to break on through to an accurate understanding of the labyrinthine agenda that is neo-feminism, that has grown directly out of globalist think tanks, mind control institutions, and ultimately from Satanism and dark occultism itself. It has led to the emasculation of men in society. I mean, there's barely a man out on the street that I see with hardly any bass in his voice anymore. Who, God forbid, if it does come down to a physical shootout, these are going to be the men. They're going to be out there. I mean, particularly in cities, it's very, very bad. Because they're very well-behaved, emasculated animals. They are well-trained and broken pets of the state who think that obedience to authority is a virtue. They love being part of the whole corporate structure. They think that's somehow representative of responsibility in life. When nothing could be further from the truth. What you're really doing is compromising your values by taking part in that system constantly. And most men won't say no to that lifestyle because most women want that lifestyle. Let's just face it and call it exactly as it is, folks. Because they've been groomed since the time that they were out of the womb to think of money as the main value system. And look, once again, let's bring it right back to my own family. There's not one woman in my entire family that I could speak of that doesn't think that money is the most important thing in the world. That's what most women are groomed to want. That's their value system. How many people care about truth? We did an experiment where I think it was like, I can't remember the exact number, but it was like 2% of people or 3% put down that they cared about truth in life. Out of, what things do you actually care about? Give me 3 things, 3 words that represent something you care about. And hardly anybody ever puts down truth. Well, of what they want in life. Knowledge, forget that. Wisdom, knowledge, forget that. I want success. Me. I should bring into this the slides from the natural law homework results. The natural law seminar homework results, because they were highly enlightening. And we should go back to that for the mindset. I should do it exclusively with women and then exclusively with men and see what the breakdown is. What the difference is.
Could you start to summarize the New Age Deception lecture you've been presenting in various cities around the country.
Absolutely. I've given a presentation now a few times called New Age Bullshit and the Suppression of the Sacred Masculine. And I apologize if that language isn't allowed on the AM and FM affiliates. What this presentation is, it's dispelling a lot of false so-called spiritual teachings of the movement known as the New Age movement. It's feel-good pseudo-spirituality. And it's being propagated by many, many, many teachers out there so that they can't actually make any real change happen in the world. And therefore, the sacred masculine of action leading to real change in the world is suppressed, hence the subtitle, The Suppression of the Sacred Masculine. It was originally 10. My new presentation, which is going to be out very soon, that I gave in Asheville, North Carolina last weekend, it contains 15 New Age deceptions, which I'll briefly outline here. What I do in the presentation, for those of you who want to go and check it out on my website, whatonearthishappening.com is my website, and you could see this presentation there, is I outline the deception, and then I balance the deception with what I call a New Age correction. This is the correction to the erroneous spiritual teaching, or the deceptive spiritual teaching, that is given by the New Age community. And then I talk about the real intended meaning, or the real spiritual message that needs to be understood regarding that concept that they are teaching in a distorted sense. So here are the deceptions in a very brief outline. The first is ignore the negative. If it's negative, I don't want to see it, hear it, talk about it, certainly not discuss it with other people, because then I'm bringing people down, when in fact ignoring the negative is what creates further ignorance and chaotic outcomes in society if we just ignore reality. Like I like to say, you can ignore reality but not without consequence. You have to respect existence or expect resistance from the universe. Respect the existence of that which is, or expect resistance from the nature of everything. Expect resistance from the universe itself, creating negative experience in your life. So that's ignore the negative. Never get angry. Okay? There's no purpose or role for the emotion of anger. And I talk about we need righteous indignation if we're going to create real change to motivate us to take action. Number 3 is we're all one, so it's all good. This is moral relativism. Everything is good. There's no such thing as right and wrong. Those are subjective judgments that have nothing to do with something that's objective and existing in nature. Well, there is objective right and wrong. And the reason that we're living in a prison societally is because people don't understand the law of freedom, that as moral behavior in the aggregate of a society increases, freedom for that society increases, and as immoral behavior increases, slavery increases. So morality and freedom are directly proportional to each other. New Age deception number 4 is you can never really know. This is called solipsism. To obtain actual knowledge of anything is not really possible. It's all just subjective, and it's all just opinion, and everybody's viewpoint is equally as valid. The notion that someone else's totally uneducated opinion, totally uninformed opinion, is as good as someone else's multiple decades of research and knowledge. Okay? So that's solipsism. 5, it's all an illusion. Nothing's real, so nothing matters. Well, at some deep level of non-differentiation, down at the quantum level, yeah, everything is one. I get that. But that doesn't mean that nothing matters. The experience here is why spirit incarnates in the physical domain. This is a construct for learning and experience of the essence of who we are. So that's New Age Deception 5. New Age Deception 6, evil is necessary. So many New Agers believe this nonsense. This is a misapplication of the understanding of polarity, that polarity is one thing expressing itself in different scales of differentiation. And that doesn't mean you go into one polarity and one form of polarity and stay there, which is what evil is. Okay? It's a misunderstanding of the laws of karma, like people are somehow being punished for what they did and we shouldn't step in and stop evil when it's happening. Like you see the injustices in the Hindu caste system and they say, oh, it's all karma from past lives. This is all nonsense. And it's a misunderstanding of free will. It's a dismissal of free will. Evil is not something that has to happen. It's a choice. It's a behavioral choice. Number 7, accept everything and never resist. And that's what it's all ultimately about. The whole New Age movement's a religion to get people to stand down and not take real action in the world, not use their masculine energy to make things change. New Age deception number 8 is the watered-down version of the laws of attraction. Again, natural law is the real law of attraction and how to apply it in your life. This watered-down version, the secret as it's propagated by the New Age movement, I want to get what's mine. I want to have the better job, the better clothes, the better house, etc. It's all very ego-oriented, service to self-oriented, whereas the real law of attraction is not only service to others-oriented, it's service to truth-oriented. So the real secret is natural law, and understanding that helps you to come into contact with the real laws of attraction. Number 9, no one is ever to blame. Blame does not exist. Yeah. And what this really teaches people is that responsibility doesn't really exist, and there's no such thing as moral culpability. People who are actually responsible for harm that was done to others. And we have to understand moral culpability in a very straightforward and streetwise way. The person who took the action is ultimately morally responsible for the harm that was caused by that action. So there is such a thing as blame. There is such a thing as culpability. It exists. I'm not saying to just dwell in that and let that eat you up, but certain people are to blame for harmful actions that they take. Common sense. Number 10, the false notion of forgiveness. To just keep excusing people endlessly for wrongs that they do. That's not real forgiveness. Real forgiveness is a two-way street that involves an apology, first and foremost on the part of the wrongdoer to the one that they wronged. And to claim that they're not going to do that action again. They're going to desist in that harmful action. Then you can forgive them. That's real forgiveness. Somebody has to offer something first, an apology, and then you're forgiving them. You're saying, I accept your word that you're not going to do this anymore. And therefore, we're okay. We're even. I don't have to take any action against you. I'll give you another chance to act right. That's 10. 11, chaos should be feared. No, chaos is actually a teacher. Making mistakes is one of the best ways that we learn. Number 12, truth doesn't need to be defended. You hear this constantly in the New Age circles. Yes, truth does need to be defended because it's constantly under attack by lies, mind control, disinformation, etc. Of course, we need to speak the truth at all times and places because truth is constantly under attack in the modern world. 13, enlightenment's only about changing yourself and feeling good all the time. This is that notion of the New Age religion as feel-good spirituality. If you're enlightened, you should never feel bad. You should always feel good. It should always be making you uplifted like you've just done some kind of great drug. No, that's not what enlightenment is. As a matter of fact, enlightenment can be very, very, very uncomfortable, especially when most other people are still dwelling in total darkness. You have to use that discomfort to motivate yourself to educate other people because that's what the real great work is the education of others. And most people don't want to do that work. They look at that and say, oh, my God, that's what you're telling me because I have this knowledge. That's now my responsibility? Yeah, that is. When you have knowledge, your responsibility is to educate your fellow man. And most people don't want to hear that either. Number 14, love is all you need. No, knowledge you need. You need courage. You need willpower to act properly, in the world, to take right action. So there's other things you need other than love. Love is not everything. Care is very important, and it is the ultimate generator of our experience, what we care enough about to then take action upon. Don't get me wrong. Love is the expansive force of consciousness, and it is absolutely required, but it's not all that's required. And this is another subtle deception that you hear constantly propagated by the New Age. And then finally, number 15, I had a little bit of fun with this, making some jokes about all the different variants of saviors that are going to come to rescue us. New Age Deception 15 is that a savior is coming any day now, So I went into all the different saviors that are prophesied to come and save humanity from its own ignorance in my last presentation on this topic. Listed all these saviors and said, they're just tripping over each other to come and rescue us from ourselves. We have to do it. We have to do that work, ladies and gentlemen. It's not going to be done for us externally. When you look for that, you're just externalizing your power to some mythical entity, deity, or force that isn't interested in propping you up and being responsible for your spiritual uplift. So that's the New Age deceptions in a nutshell.
Absolutely. Mark Passio, radio host, independent researcher and director of the site whatonearthishappening.com. Thank you very much for being on the show.
Jeff, thank you so much for providing the opportunity.
I find no entertainment in it anymore. Not when you've seen behind the veil. You know, it's all Brennan Circus, smoke and mirrors. It's hard to get into storylines, and because you know it's all bullshit. It's just all bullshit. Everything's bullshit, and you see the symbolism. You pick up on the underlying messages and agendas being pushed, and then it just gets upsetting, and then you get fucking pissed. So I don't expose myself to that. Hi-yo.
I don't really know. I mean, as an awake person, when you can't reach out to people, I mean, what are you supposed to do, and how are we supposed to keep our hopes up? I mean, it's so depressing when you think of it.
Yeah, it is, because the conditioning on most people, when you see them and they can't look you in the eye or they think you're crazy, is because the condition has taken perfectly on them. And you're looking at conditioned robots, really. And they'll turn on you too. At the right time, they'll turn on you. But that's the perfect conditioning. The ones who are awake generally have always been awake, or they've known something was wrong. And they can't be conditioned quite the same way. But you're in amongst most people where the conditioning has worked perfectly. And that's the problem. I've always said the elite have a symbiosis amongst the masses of people, the general mass of people. Because the masses always look towards government to solve problems, even if it's a fake problem put out by the government. We immediately run to help us, save us, you know. There's only very few people in between, in the middle, who don't want to be stinking rich and rule everyone else's lives for them. And they don't want to belong to the general mob that just goes and watches all the porn on their internet all day long, or ball games or whatever. So it's a small group really who don't belong to either camp. That's a problem, because as I say, the masses have a symbiotic relationship with the elite, and eventually when they get all their agendas through, the elite will turn around and say, we couldn't have done it without you, to the masses.
Yeah, and that's such a... I think it's disgusting. There's no other word for it. It's just utterly disgusting. Yeah?
It is, and it's very depressing until you realize that you might be surprised how many of those in between who are not brainwashed or conditioned and who don't seek personal power can still have a voice and start changing things around. And that's the only hope that we have, is to postpone it at least long enough. They'll either wither away, or they'll come out with an even heavier hand. But that's when even the masses start to see it and they know something's wrong, when the heavy hand of the monster comes upon them. And that's what it might take. Stall them long enough until timetables, according to those at the top, cannot be stalled. If you can stall their timetables, they get awfully angry and they start using force. Force is, at least the use of force, terrifies the public, and maybe even to waking up a little bit. And that's all we can really hope for. It's because it's too perfect. It's been here too long, this system.
But we cannot use violence and force.
No, they're so perfectly good at getting us to kill each other or fight each other. This has been their strategy for centuries, and it's a perfect art of how to get it all going. We can't use that at all. And by the same token, we have to make sure that the elites don't come out with a heavy hand and start using open force on the general public. Here's the thing too. They have been using force, or at least deadly intentions on the general public, because they know how they've been dumbing us down. They know when they rob your mind, it's the same as killing you. And when they inject things into you too that make the autism bloom, and it also makes everyone quite a few points lower in the IQ scale, makes us all sick so that we'll die off early, infertile, etc. They are physically, literally, this is a targeting, this is a murderous rampage has been going on for a long time under the usual covert actions of the United Nations that always deny what they're doing. One of the top players in this who wrote about it, who taught Rhodes Scholars back in the 40s and 30s, internationalist again, who spoke, by the way, so he made a great speech in Sweden, was Toynbee. There were two Toynbees, father and son, and one took over from the other. But they literally taught the Rhodes Scholars for internationalism and to penetrate all governments and push them towards internationalism. He said, we always deny with our mouths what our hands are doing. And that was become the mantra for every organization within the United Nations. We always deny with our mouths what our hands are doing. And that's still their strategy today.
Respect the elderly, mother.
I miss my calling.